Billion-Dollar Whale by Tom Wright and Bradley Hope. Picture this. You're standing in Las Vegas in November 2012, but this isn't your typical Vegas night. You've just been shuttled to what looks like an empty lot on the Strip, where someone has constructed a building the size of an airplane hangar. Just for tonight. Just for one party. Step inside, and your brain struggles to process what you're seeing. To your left, there's an actual working carnival, complete with a spinning Ferris wheel and circus trampolines. To your right, the kind of nightclub that makes billionaires feel broke. And scattered throughout, caged lions and tigers, casually on display like houseplants. Leonardo DiCaprio is deep in conversation with Martin Scorsese. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian are holding court nearby. Jamie Foxx owns the stage. Then, the pièce de résistance. A massive cake rolls out, bursts open, and Britney Spears emerges to serenade someone with "Happy Birthday." The gifts arrive like a parade of obscenity. A fire-engine red Lamborghini, 3 top-of-the-line motorcycles, and finally, the crown jewel, a $2.5 million Bugatti Veyron, complete with an oversized bow. So who's the lucky birthday boy commanding this circus of excess? He's a chubby, baby-faced guy from Malaysia who just turned 31. He's awkward, barely talking to anyone, yet somehow he's the sun around which this entire galaxy of wealth and celebrity orbits. His name is Jho Low. The rumors about him are wild. Some whisper he's secretly a prince. Others insist he's an international arms dealer. A few claim he inherited billions from his grandfather. But here's the thing. The truth is so much more insane than any rumor could ever be. Because the money paying for this spectacle, the Bugatti, the celebrities, the millions being tossed around like confetti, was stolen, and not just any theft. This was one of the most audacious financial heists in human history. Today, we're unpacking the jaw-dropping story captured in Billion-Dollar Whale by investigative journalists Tom Wright and Bradley Hope. This isn't some dry finance book. This is a real-life thriller that exposes how power, greed, and carefully crafted illusions work at the highest levels of our world. By the time we're done, you won't just know how a kid from a small island conned Wall Street, Hollywood, and world governments. You'll understand something deeper about the systems that run our world, and just how fragile they really are when someone has the audacity to test them. Our story doesn't start in Vegas glamour. It begins on the sleepy, palm-covered island of Penang, Malaysia, where a teenage Jho Low is already practicing his signature skill, creating illusions. He wasn't born into royalty or old money. His dad, Larry Low, was a successful businessman worth maybe $15 million. That's serious money for most people, but in the world Jho Low dreamed of entering, it was pocket change. So he started building his own reality, brick by carefully placed brick. One summer, he borrowed a billionaire family friend's 160-foot yacht and sprawling vacation home to impress his new rich friends from Harrow, the elite British boarding school he attended. But he didn't stop there. He did something small, but absolutely genius. He went through the yacht and the house, carefully removing the owner's family photos and replacing them with pictures of his own family. His friends showed up and bought it completely. They genuinely believed this incredible wealth belonged to the Low family. That one act tells you everything you need to know about Jho Low. He figured out early that perception is reality. Control what people believe about you, and you control them. This wasn't just teenage showing off. This was strategy. At Harrow, he surrounded himself with the children of Middle Eastern and Asian royalty, like the son of the Sultan of Brunei. He didn't have their money, but he became their fixer, the guy who made things happen. Once, he forged a letter on Brunei embassy letterhead to get his underage friends into China White, one of London's hottest nightclubs. It worked. The lesson crystallized. The appearance of power works just as well as the real thing. He brought this playbook to the Wharton School of Business in America. While his classmates buried themselves in textbooks, Low was networking. He identified the wealthiest students, sons of Kuwaiti magnates and Arab sheikhs, and made himself indispensable to them, throwing parties that cemented his status. For his 20th birthday, he dropped a rumored $40,000 to rent out a popular Philadelphia nightclub called Shampoo, with a completely open bar all night. He even had a model lie on a bar, covered in nothing but lettuce leaves and sushi for guests to eat off her. His classmates started calling him the Asian Great Gatsby, this mysterious figure who threw incredible parties but always seemed to be watching from the shadows. Behind the scenes, though, it was still smoke and mirrors. He couldn't actually afford that shampoo party. He paid part up front and spent months haggling with the owners for a steep discount on the rest. He was building a brand of immense wealth, all on borrowed money and pure audacity. After Wharton, Low knew the corporate ladder wasn't for him. He wanted to play a bigger game. His plan was brilliantly simple: become the bridge between the massive, untapped pools of money in the Middle East and the growing economies of Southeast Asia, with himself right in the middle, skimming off the top. His first major connection came through a Wharton friend. He secured a meeting with Yusuf al-Otaiba, a young, ambitious advisor to the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. Otaiba was powerful but not yet fabulously wealthy by royal standards, and he was hungry for opportunities. Low, radiating confidence, pitched himself as a Malaysian insider who could deliver lucrative deals. It was mostly bluster, but Otaiba was intrigued. This connection was Low's golden ticket. Otaiba opened doors to Abu Dhabi's power brokers, introducing Low to the heads of massive sovereign wealth funds, government-owned investment pools worth tens of billions. Low watched young, smooth executives like Khaldoon al-Mubarak of the Mubadala Fund control staggering amounts of money. A thought took root. Why couldn't he do that? Back in Malaysia, he needed a powerful patron. He had his eye on one: the family of Najib Razak, Malaysia's deputy prime minister, widely expected to become the next leader. Low had known Najib's stepson, Riza Aziz, for years from their time in London. His opportunity came when a Malaysian sovereign fund, Khazanah, was looking for partners for a massive real estate project called the Iskandar Development. Low jumped into action. He called Otaiba and convinced Abu Dhabi's Mubadala Fund to fly in and invest. Low orchestrated the entire thing, positioning himself as the indispensable deal-maker. He presented the finished deal to Najib Razak like a gift. Here was massive foreign investment that Najib could claim full credit for, boosting his political credentials without lifting a finger. Najib and his notoriously extravagant wife, Rosma Mansour, were dazzled. At a party celebrating the deal, Rosma publicly thanked Jho Low for bringing Middle Eastern investment to Malaysia. He was in. But Low was furious. He'd expected a huge broker fee, but the professional managers at Khazanah refused to pay him. The lesson was crystal clear. Working with clean, well-run institutions was a dead end. To get what he wanted, he needed to control his own fund. He needed to be the one signing the checks. This is where the story shifts from ambitious networking to outright fraud. The heist begins. In 2009, Najib Razak becomes Prime Minister of Malaysia. Almost overnight, Jho Low goes from well-connected social climber to having direct access to the most powerful man in the country. And Najib needed money. His ruling party was losing popularity, and he saw a state-owned investment fund as the perfect solution, a secret slush fund to finance political projects and keep him in power. Low had the perfect vehicle ready. He'd been working on setting up a smaller fund for the state of Terengganu. Now, he convinced Najib to take it over, expand it, and federalize it. They renamed it 1 Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB. On paper, its mission was noble: invest in green energy and tourism to create jobs for Malaysians. In reality, it was Jho Low's personal ATM, and he had the Prime Minister's blessing. Low took no official role at 1MDB. He was a ghost, a puppet master pulling strings from the shadows, stuffing the fund's management with his own people who would follow his orders without question. Now he needed a deal, and he needed a partner who looked legitimate but was, like him, hungry for cash. He found one in a little-known company called Petro-Saudi International, co-founded by Prince Turki bin Abdullah, a minor Saudi prince trading on his royal name to score business deals. To seal the deal, Low orchestrated another masterpiece of illusion. He arranged for Prime Minister Najib and his family to vacation on a superyacht in the French Riviera. At the same time, he had Prince Turki charter an even more impressive yacht, the Alpha Nero, nearby. He then brought Najib aboard to meet the Saudi royalty. The meeting was a complete setup, designed to make Najib believe he was forging a powerful government-to-government alliance. It worked perfectly. Najib was convinced and greenlit a joint venture between 1MDB and Petro-Saudi. The plan looked simple on the surface. Petro-Saudi would contribute its supposed oil assets, valued at $2.5 billion, to a new joint venture. 1MDB would contribute $1 billion in cash. What happened next was the heist. The deal was rushed through at breathtaking speed. On September 30, 2009, 1MDB instructed its bank, Deutsche Bank, to transfer the $1 billion. But the instructions were bizarre. Only $300 million was to go to the joint venture's official bank account. The other $700 million, the vast majority, was to be sent to a mysterious unnamed account at a different Swiss bank, RBS Coutts. The bankers at Deutsche were confused. They asked why. Low's man at 1MDB, Casey Tang, told them it was to repay a loan that Petro-Saudi had supposedly made to the joint venture. This was complete fiction. The joint venture didn't even have a bank account when the loan was supposedly made. Under pressure, and with the excuse that this is where they want to send it, Deutsche Bank pushed the transfers through. That mysterious account didn't belong to Petro-Saudi. It belonged to a shell company set up in the Seychelles called Goodstar Limited. And who owned Goodstar? Jho Low. In one single transaction, he had stolen $700 million of Malaysian government money. It was one of the largest, most brazen thefts in modern history, pulled off in broad daylight, right under the noses of global banks. From that $700 million, Low paid off his co-conspirators at Petro-Saudi, sending them tens of millions. But hundreds of millions remained under his sole control. Jho Low, just 27 years old and only a few years out of college, now had access to more liquid cash than almost anyone on Earth. And he began to spend it like the world was ending tomorrow. The years from 2009 to 2012 were an absolute blur of excess. The stolen money was funneled from Switzerland into the United States through a clever loophole: lawyers, trust accounts. These accounts, designed to hold client funds for things like property deals, provided perfect anonymity, making it nearly impossible for banks to trace the money's true origin. Between October 2009 and June 2010 alone, Low and his friends burned through $85 million on alcohol, private jets, yachts, and paying celebrities and models to hang out with them. He rented a suite of rooms in New York's Park Imperial for $100,000 a month. One night, he sent 23 bottles of crystal champagne to Lindsay Lohan's table at a club. The New York Post dubbed him the, quote, mystery man of the city club scene. He became the ultimate, quote, whale, casino speak, for their biggest spenders. And he wanted to be surrounded by the most famous people on Earth. He befriended Paris Hilton, whom he'd fantasized about in college, paying her a reported $100,000 per event just to show up at his parties. He threw a party for her 29th birthday, giving her a Cartier watch and $250,000 in gambling chips. That night, in just 10 minutes, Low lost $2 million at the baccarat table without even flinching. His biggest prize, though, was Leonardo DiCaprio. Low's money offered DiCaprio something priceless: independence. The actor had been trying for years to make a film based on Jordan Belfort's memoir. The project was called The Wolf of Wall Street. But the big Hollywood studios were hesitant. The script was too debauched, too risky, too expensive. Jho Low saw his opening. He teamed up with Najib's stepson, Riza Aziz, and an American talent booker named Joey McFarland to form a production company called Red Granite Pictures. Their mission: financed the unfilmable movie. With Low's bottomless pit of stolen 1MDB money, Red Granite swooped in and offered to finance the entire $100 million budget, giving director Martin Scorsese and DiCaprio complete artistic freedom. The irony was absolutely staggering. A massive financial fraud was funding a film celebrating a legendary financial fraudster. Even Jordan Belfort himself, after attending Red Granite's multi-million-dollar launch party at the Cannes Film Festival, smelled something off. He told his girlfriend, "This is a freaking scam. Anybody who does this has stolen money. You wouldn't spend money you worked for like that." But in Hollywood, money talks louder than questions. As Low's profile grew, so did the financial hole at 1MDB. The first heist was just the appetizer. The fund needed more money, and Jho Low was about to pull off an even bigger scam, this time with the help of the most powerful investment bank in the world, Goldman Sachs. By 2012, Goldman Sachs was in a tough spot. The 2008 financial crisis had tarnished its reputation. The bank was accused of selling junk products to clients while secretly betting against them. Facing new regulations and a weak U.S. economy, Goldman's leaders, like CEO Lloyd Blankfein and President Gary Cohn, decided to push aggressively into emerging markets. They called it monetizing the state, doing big deals with government-run funds. Enter Tim Leissner, a dashing, ambitious Goldman banker in Asia. He'd been cultivating a relationship with Low for years, hoping to land a major deal with 1MDB. The opportunity came when 1MDB decided to enter the energy business, buying up power plants in Malaysia. To finance this, they needed to borrow billions by selling bonds to international investors. But 1MDB had no track record and no credit rating. Who would lend them that kind of money? Low, along with a new, powerful and corrupt partner from Abu Dhabi named Khadem al-Kubaisi, devised a brilliant plan. Al-Kubaisi ran a massive Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth fund called IPIC. The plan was for IPIC to, quote, guarantee 1MDB's bonds. This meant if 1MDB failed to pay, Abu Dhabi would step in. With this guarantee, the bonds looked like a safe investment. Goldman Sachs, led by Leissner and a structuring expert named Andrea Vella, agreed to arrange the sale. But this wasn't a normal deal. Goldman didn't just find investors. They bought the entire $3.5 billion worth of bonds themselves in two separate deals, planning to sell them later. For taking on this supposed risk, they charged 1MDB an astronomical fee. On a typical government bond deal, a bank might make a 1% fee. Goldman made close to 10%, earning nearly $600 million in profit from 1MDB in just 12 months. It was one of the most profitable deals in the bank's recent history. But where did the money go? This was the second and third heist. Just like with PetroSaudi, a huge portion of the money raised was immediately diverted. This time, the money flowed to a fake, look-alike company called Abar Investments PJS Limited, nearly identical to the name of a real IPI6 subsidiary. But this was just a shell company in the British Virgin Islands, secretly controlled by Al-Kubaisi and Al-Husseini. In total, from these two Goldman-backed bond deals, another $1.4 billion was stolen. This time, the money wasn't just for parties. It was for politics. The 2013 Malaysian elections were approaching, and Prime Minister Najib was in danger of losing. Low took the stolen money and funneled it directly to his patron. In March 2013, he sent a cryptic message to a banker in Malaysia, warning her that, quote, 681 American pies were on their way. Days later, $681 million was wired from a shell company into Najib Razak's personal bank account. The money flooded the country, funding concerts with K-pop star Psy, giving out free food, and paying off political cronies. Najib clung to power, but just barely. With his political patron secure, Jho Low's empire reached its peak. He used the new funds to go on an astonishing buying spree. He bought a $39 million mansion in the Hollywood Hills. He attempted to buy the famous Park Lane Hotel in New York for $654 million. He acquired a stake in EMI Music Publishing, making him an instant music mogul. And he began assembling one of the world's most valuable private art collections, buying masterpieces by Monet, Picasso, and Van Gogh. At a Christie's auction in 2013, with Leonardo DiCaprio in the room, he paid a record-breaking $48.8 million for a painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat. He hid these priceless works in a secretive tax-free warehouse in Geneva known as a Freeport, a money launderer's paradise. He also began a romance with supermodel Miranda Kerr, gifting her over $8 million in diamond jewelry, including a necklace with a heart-shaped diamond, telling the jeweler, "Size matters." And finally, he bought the ultimate status symbol, his own mega yacht, the 300-foot Equanimity, for $250 million. Jho Low had done it. He'd used stolen money to build a seemingly legitimate global empire. He was a movie producer, a music mogul, a property tycoon, an art collector, and a philanthropist, all while dating a supermodel. He'd created the ultimate illusion. But all illusions eventually shatter. The unraveling was as dramatic as the rise. The first thread was pulled by Xavier Justo, a disgruntled former employee of PetroSaudi. Feeling he'd been cheated out of millions, Justo had made a copy of the company's computer servers before he left, 140 gigabytes of emails and documents detailing the entire first heist. For years he sat on this explosive information. Finally, in 2015, he decided to sell it. His buyer was Claire Rewcastle-Brown, a tenacious British journalist who ran a blog called Sarawak Report. She'd been investigating corruption in Malaysia for years and suspected something was deeply wrong at 1MDB. Justo demanded $2 million for the data. Rewcastle-Brown couldn't pay, but she knew someone who might. Tong Kui Ong, the owner of a Malaysian business newspaper, The Edge. Tong bought the data, and in February 2015, the story broke. Sarawak Report and The Edge published a series of bombshell articles, using the leaked emails to prove, for the first time, that hundreds of millions from 1MDB had been funneled to Jho Low's Good Star Company. The story exploded in Malaysia, but it was a front-page article in the Wall Street Journal in July 2015 that made it a global scandal. The journal reported that investigators had traced nearly $700 million directly into Prime Minister Najib Razak's personal bank accounts. The backlash was swift and brutal. Facing political annihilation, Najib transformed from a charming Western-friendly leader into a ruthless strongman. In 1 week, he fired the Attorney General, who was preparing criminal charges against him. He fired his own deputy prime minister for speaking out. He suspended the newspapers that broke the story. The crackdown was terrifying. A public prosecutor on the case, Kevin Moraes, was abducted from his car, murdered, and his body was found encased in concrete inside an oil drum. Najib had shut down the investigation in Malaysia, but he couldn't stop the world. The U.S. Department of Justice had launched its own probe, led by a special FBI squad dedicated to international corruption. In July 2016, Attorney General Loretta Lynch announced the largest asset seizure in U.S. history, moving to reclaim over $1 billion in assets, including the Park Laurel penthouse, the rights to The Wolf of Wall Street, the EMI music stake, the private jet, and the priceless art collection, all bought with stolen 1MDB money. The lawsuit thinly disguised Prime Minister Najib as Malaysian Official 1. The net was closing. Jho Low became a fugitive, hiding out in Thailand and China, living on his super yacht. His partners began to fall. Khadem Al-Kubasi was arrested in Abu Dhabi. Bankers in Singapore who'd helped Low move the money were sent to jail. Tim Leissner was fired from Goldman Sachs. For a time, it seemed Najib might survive. He had the full power of the state behind him. But he underestimated one thing: the anger of the Malaysian people. In May 2018, in a stunning election upset, Najib's ruling party was thrown out of power for the first time in the nation's history. His 92-year-old predecessor, Mahathir Mohamad, returned to lead the country, campaigning on a single promise: bring those responsible for the 1MDB scandal to justice. Days later, Najib and his wife Rasma were stopped at an airport trying to flee the country on a private jet. Police raided their properties, and what they found was jaw-dropping: 567 luxury handbags, including countless Hermes Birkins, 12,000 pieces of jewelry, 423 watches, and $28 million in cash, all stuffed into bags and safes. It took days just to count it all. Soon after, Najib Razak, the once untouchable prime minister, was arrested and charged with massive corruption. And Jho Low? He vanished. With arrest warrants out for him in Malaysia, Singapore, and an Interpol red notice, he disappeared, believed to be hiding somewhere in China, protected by powerful figures who saw him as a useful pawn. His last great asset, the equanimity, was seized by the FBI in Bali. The boy from Penang who'd built an empire on illusion was finally left with nothing but a life on the run. When you finish a story like Billion-Dollar Whale, it's easy to feel shocked, maybe even angry. How could this happen? How could one person steal so much money and get away with it for so long? But I think the most powerful lesson in this book isn't just about one man's greed. It's about the systems that allowed him to thrive. Jho Low wasn't a financial genius. He didn't invent some complex algorithm. His true genius was understanding human nature and exploiting the weaknesses of the global financial system. He understood that in a world obsessed with wealth and status, the appearance of success is often more powerful than success itself. From swapping those family photos on the yacht as a teenager, to convincing prime ministers and Wall Street bankers that he represented billions in family wealth, his entire career was built on a carefully crafted illusion. He knew that if you throw enough money around, if you have celebrities at your parties and fly on private jets, people stop asking questions. They want to believe you're the real deal, because it benefits them to be in your orbit. This story is a profound wake-up call about the gatekeepers of our financial world. Every step of the way, there was a bank, an auditor, a law firm, or a regulator that should have stopped this. Goldman Sachs, chasing enormous profits, overlooked countless red flags. Private banks in Switzerland and Singapore, hungry for the business of a new billionaire, bent their own rules. Lawyers created shell companies that provided perfect cover for money laundering. The system that's supposed to protect us failed, again and again, because the people inside it were blinded by fees and the allure of immense wealth. And what about Hollywood? The book shines a harsh light on the transactional nature of celebrity. For the right price, stars will show up to your party, sing for you, and even become your friend. Low's money bought him access to the most exclusive circles on the planet, not because they liked him, but because he could fund their projects, their charities, and their lifestyles. It reveals a world where proximity to money often matters more than where that money came from. So what can we take away from this? For anyone starting out, this story is a powerful cautionary tale, but it's also an education. It teaches you to be skeptical, to look past the surface of things. When you see extreme wealth that seems to have come from nowhere, ask questions. When a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. This book shows us that true value isn't built on illusion. It's built on integrity, hard work, and creating something real. Jho Low built an empire of air, and in the end, that's all that was left. He has the money, for now, but he has no country, no freedom, and no peace. He's a prisoner of the very wealth he stole. We've journeyed through the incredible highs and staggering lows of this story today, but what I've shared is just the skeleton of this massive financial maze. The real story, the true thriller, is in the details that Tom Wright and Bradley Hope so brilliantly uncovered. A summary is like looking at a map, but reading the book is like taking the journey yourself. If this story has sparked your curiosity, if you want to truly understand how one man fooled the world, I urge you to pick up a copy of Billion Dollar Whale. The link is in the description. It's more than a book. It's an education in how the modern world really works. Also, if you found value in our deep dive today, it would mean the world to me if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to Billionaire's Bookshelf. We have so many more incredible stories and timeless lessons to explore together. Let's continue this journey of learning and growing, one book at a time.